Welcome back to Basic Bananas Radio, where we share tried and tested ways to grow your brand and get more customers. Everything from the latest in marketing and branding, right through to growing your team and creating an irresistible culture. Welcome to Basic Bananas Radio. In this episode, I interview Athin Cassiotis. He's a business growth expert and with tons of experience. He's worked with hundreds, potentially even thousands of different businesses through his different offerings, and an awesome episode where we kind of go on the journey from getting started almost, or like we're at this point where you're busy, you feel like you're wearing 100 different hats in your business, you've got a life to manage, potentially a family, you want to look after your health, and you're trying to run a business, and within the business alone you're wearing potentially 100 different hats just in that space, and how to juggle it all, then how to systemize it, how to free yourself, who to employ first to free up your time with the least amount of risk, and then what happens later as you get busier. So we kind of go on this whole journey, which realistically in business it would be over a few years, but it could obviously relate to you no matter where you are at in business. So an awesome episode, and if you do have any questions in relation to the show, or requests for future episodes, certain topics or anything that you have of interest, get in touch with the team at basicbananas.com. We're quite accommodating and we like to get ideas from you, so we'd love to hear what you want to hear about, and we'll create shows based on your preferences. Enjoy the show, and any questions, get in touch with the team. Athin, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Awesome to be here and add a lot of value to your audience.
And we were talking just now off the air about so many different topics we could talk about. And it's almost challenging because there's so much we could cover. And I want to make the best use of your time, to obviously deliver the most value to our audience, and really to small business people that are wearing 100 different hats every single day, and sometimes feel like business is, going around in circles, spinning our wheels. With your knowledge and experience, that could be a good starting place. Just, wearing so many different hats, and what do we do? And do you systemize? But then how do you systemize when that's going to add more to my workload? Where do I start? What are your thoughts? So let's hear from you. Obviously the typical business person that's wearing too many hats, and they know it, but then they can't take off one of the hats because then they've got to afford to pay someone else to wear that hat. And where do we go from here?
Yeah, it's always the conundrum, right? As we start, it's almost like we can create a six-figure business by ourselves, technically, right, with all the hats. But then as we want to grow and, to 7 figures and 8 figures and beyond, we do need other people, right? So I guess the challenge is understanding, what's the best use of your time. And as the business owner, we need to be thinking about revenue generating tasks. So, this is the sales, the marketing, the building the relationships, the partnership side of things, right? That's really what's going to drive the business growth. So everything else should be delegated, right? Whether that's internally or even outsourced, right? To people outside the organization. So that's admin stuff. It could be numbers, bookkeeping things. It could be, even some social media tasks, whatever it is that's not necessarily driving the business up. Now, if we've got to have all the hats, I think we need to understand and know enough about all the different areas of business. So I have my 9 keys to business growth mastery, and I train and teach people to understand all the areas, because firstly, I think it's important to know enough about all the areas of business, because if you're going to get somebody else to do the job for you, whether that's an outsourced agency, whether that's, someone that you hire internally, you need to know enough to ask the right questions to know that they're doing the right job, right? Instead of just praying that they're going to, do something for you. So I think that's the first part, is education. And then I think initially as well, it's about mindset where, do you have a belief that, I need to be busy. I need to work hard. I need to do all of these things, right? That's actually making you do this. So there's a little bit of an awareness piece as well, where there might be some unconscious things that your parents told you to work hard and you just keep doing what you're doing, and no one can do it as good as me, right? Which is true, because everyone's unique. No one's ever going to do it as good as us, because no one's us, right? In that area there. So, my first bit around mindset around, wanting to let go. And I think this is one of the biggest challenges I see with business owners, is letting go, right? They want the responsibility. No one can do it as good as me. I'm just going to do it all. I can control it all, but it keeps them stuck, right? In that area there. So understanding that, by letting it go, if I give it to somebody else and they can do it, let's just say 80% as good as me, that is good enough, right? Because then you've got 180% output, right? With that extra person in you, then it becomes 260% output, etc. Right? As you start to hire people, and be okay that they're not going to do it exactly as good as you, they're not going to do it as fast as you, they're not going to be perfect in the way that they execute, but then it's up to you on how you lead them, how you train them, how you manage them, and the systems that come part of that to make that as good of an experience as anything, right? So that's how I would start the frame, I guess, of how we need to think about that. And then we can start to think about getting deeper into those systems and leadership parts. So I don't know, I can keep going if you want to, or I don't know if you want to ask me anything else for now.
That's awesome. Even just on that, it's it's you're right, like a lot of fear, right, around letting go, and that then it might cost me money or they stuff it up or whatever. But I know too that in my experience, once you do let go, and even if it is like the 80%, they do it 80%, over time, as you're free from doing it, a lot of my team then end up doing a much better job than I do. Even if it wasn't something they ever were trained in, they come in and they might get them to the 80%, like you're saying, and then get out of their way. Because my mind might be on, what's happened with this person in America. Oh no, this person's, and then team members disappeared or da da da, and I've got different things in my mind. Whereas they're, whether it's something higher level, like facilitating with our members and training them, or or even just like posting books and doing admin, they get it out quicker than I do. You know what I mean? So, yeah, no, totally agree. That's awesome. And I think also people, I don't know, they kind of feel like they have to be busy to be, I don't know, to be a business person. Do you know what I mean? Like something, it's like a weird, it's like sometimes people ask us like, oh, I think, I want to get the business to, I don't know, 500,000 a year, and then I'll have a better life. I'm like, well, wait a sec, you'll be busier when you get to that level, realistically, or like, and there's some business people I work with have a $10 million a year business. Others have the first, $100,000 a year, but it's not the income that really, it's like their own, like you're saying, their own beliefs around how it can run and how it can have a better life at the same time. Probably a good question to ask, isn't it? How can I double the business and work half the time? Probably a good question. Yeah, but that's brilliant. Thank you. And then what do we do? So or if you got any further thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love that. And I'll keep expanding. I think it's always like, how can I do both? I think that's the mentality, right? And I think there's that hustle culture, right? That you hear a lot online. I just work harder, get up at 3 a.m. in the morning and do all these things, and I think that challenges us, where in the end, for me, I help business owners create wealth and freedom. And freedom is really the key part, right? And freedom means different to everybody else. But to me, it's like doing what you want when you want to do, right? And I think the biggest great challenge that I did when I went overseas with my wife last year to Europe for 2 months, right? And so we had to keep the businesses going. And we got up in the morning, we did like roughly 2 hours of work, right? And then we enjoyed the rest of the day. And it's amazing how much time you get and how much time you get done using, that the Parkinson's law effect and, being really efficient. So sometimes you need to be like, well, what if I could do everything? I only had the first half of the day before lunch to complete everything. What would I do? And then, what would happen outside of that? So it's a really good mindset shift, and going that I don't have to work all day. I know people that work 1 hour a day in the morning and they do whatever they want for the rest of the day. And they've got like a 8-figure business, right? You know what I mean? Like very big. So they know exactly what are the key tasks they need to do, and then they get the other people to hire them. So where does that start? If you're early on in this journey, I think a first good hire is like a virtual assistant, a VA, that you can get, because, especially with us in Australia, people in like the Philippines, there's a lower cost of living, so it's a lot cheaper than hiring someone locally here. I still think there's obviously value in hiring people locally, but there's a good combination, right? Especially without having too much of a cost output, initially as you're starting to grow. So less risk, that you're paying someone each month, and then you can give those lower level tasks, right? Those, maybe it's bookkeeping, maybe it's admin stuff, maybe there's other things like all my podcast editing and stuff my VA does, right? So it just depends on your business there, on what's needed. And that's a good way. Now, when you're training these people, some tips that I can give is, there's a lot of business owners, it's like, I don't want to sit there and writing up a whole procedure manual. I don't have time for that, right? You know what I mean? So the simple way is you're already doing the task anyway. So I just use Zoom, screen share, record my screen, right? And just talk and say, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm now sending this email. I'm now sending this invoice to this client, whatever, right? That's in the background of your business. You're just talking through it, whether they're on the call with you, whether they're not on the call with you, it doesn't matter. And then you send them that video and go, this is what I've done. You've done the task anyway because you were going to do it. Now you've got a recording of it. Then I ask the VA or the person saying, can you now create a process document out of this? Whether that's a simple Word doc with some screenshots and steps, or you could do it in an online knowledge management portal, depending on your business. And then they can create the process, right? From there. So there's something physical to look at. You can still have the video, but then, the other documents more adjustable if the process changes over time. And that's how you start to build out your systems, is just record yourself. And over time, you do that, then it becomes easy, once you do things the first time. And I think the mentality is, if this is going to happen more than once, is I create a system for it, I create a video, everything like that. And pretty much everything in your business, bar a few things, is going to happen more than once. And that will then allow you to be able to travel when you want to travel. It allows you to also, let's just say your team is sick or they're on leave, they want to go on holidays, things like that. You can cover for them, right? Because especially even if you've got one person and they want to go on holidays for a bit, you haven't done the job for a while, or you've got something to refer to just in case, right? If you need to go back, or if you've got multiple team members, someone can cover, right, for them if they're off and things like that. So it starts to protect your business, because really that's a lot of your IP, your intellectual property in your business is those systems. And that way, if key people leave your business, then it's not going to be a detriment, right? You can just plug and play somebody in there on that journey. So I think that's a big part about systems, is getting the people in, recording those, and then finding the other software systems and things like that are going to help you to automate things, right? Because we don't want to just have everything in Microsoft Excel or, these other things like that, even though Excel has its use in some areas, but there's a lot of different systems, whether it's like, marketing that you guys do, right? You've got marketing funnels, you've got automation systems that set everything up automatically. You've got all these different things that can happen in a business, whether it's a CRM, whether it's a project management system, whether it's your accounting system like Xero. There's so many systems out there that can allow you to do things quickly. Even with AI now, there's so many things, right, that speed up time for yourself and your team. So I think it's getting the people in, being good, delegate, train them that way, and then finding systems that can also help you and your team to make it efficient. Because as humans, there's always going to be human error, but if we can get a system in there that does it the same every time, there's no human error, then you'll be likely less frustrated because there'll be less issues, right, in the business. And then you can have, some more fun that way. So that's how initially I would start looking at, delegating those things. And then it's just really looking at your numbers of, who to hire, who's needed in your business as the business grows.
Yeah, totally awesome, and totally agree as well, because often it's the kind of admin grunt work that people get bogged down with, the stuff they don't even like doing. And I think sometimes too, the fear, like you were saying before, is around, oh, what if they say the wrong thing to a customer, an email inquiry or something, or also security. Security comes up a lot, like, oh, what about, do you give them your passwords and logins and things? I say yes, because I want them, funnily enough, with our team members where we've had similar, you know, like that kind of question, how would I answer it? Well, they're our security guards, basically. They're like the ones that actually see stuff. Might not notice if something's going on, someone's hacked the database, they see it really quickly. So yeah, and I totally agree. We have team members ourselves in the Philippines. We have 4 team members that have been with us for about 10 years. So couldn't agree more. What do you use for or what do you use for platform? We use Google Sites. What do you to record, or where do you put the processes, or just in folders, or what do you think for someone starting out as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, you can just use obviously the simple way, but there's risk, right? So you could use just Google Drive or a Dropbox, right? Initially, as you're creating process documents. The challenge with that is that people can easily copy them, right? Like you can just go copy paste. And let's say someone could just create the exact same business. They could leave you and create and have all the systems and processes, right? So we have to think yeah, that's unlikely to happen, but you've always got to think many steps ahead, right? Strategic thinking and removing risk out of a business. So I don't recommend that. Google Sites, yes, that's like the next level up where they've created a system. I think the challenge with Google Sites is the way that you give access to people. It's a bit harder to navigate and not as flexible with only giving people certain access to certain things and the way that it's set up. So I think Google stand normally like that, right? So if you want something simple, it's like Google Sheets versus Excel. Google Sheets is a lot simpler. It's great for communicating with each other. Everyone can work on it at the same time, but it doesn't have as much functionality as Excel. So if you're okay with the less functionality of Google Sites, then use it, right? Especially if you're in a Google system, it's a great way to start. The challenge will be later is if you want to expand that and give people certain access. So for example, some other platforms that, you can use are I interviewed the founder, the author of the book Systemology. Great guy, David Jennings. He's created an own platform that's all about systems. It's a really cool platform that he's created. One that's been around for a while, especially in the US, but it's used here too, is called Process Street. So process.st, Process Street. That's used a lot. So quite a more in-depth knowledge management system as well to put all your processes and everything in place there. The other one, if you want to have, so they're more specific tailored systems. The other thing that I'm looking at is maybe you want to tailor it yourself to do something a little bit more, than what you're doing. And there's a software you've probably heard of called Notion, Notion. Notion is sort of like you have a blank canvas, right? And you can create what you want to create. So Notion could be a good way if you want to have it create it in a particular way instead of using a standard way that a system does it, that you want to create your own ecosystem there from a knowledge management perspective and maybe other elements of your business that are linked to that as well. So, I think it's not always a one size fits all with systems. It's like giving you these things, obviously look at your own thing. When I work with clients, we delve in, look at the pros and cons and what's right for them. But I think it's always good to think ahead, right? And I'll give an example of a CRM that I know you'll know is right. A lot of people think, oh, I'll get MailChimp. It's free and everything like that, but it doesn't scale well, right? It doesn't help them when they want to go later down the track. It's the same with some of these systems, like you know what I mean, like a Google Sites or something that it may not get you to that point. It may be fine, or you need to go for a better CRM that's going to allow you to get to the point later without having to then change in a year or two, create more, issues and challenges there as well.
Yeah, yeah. We have like I even have we create separate, so we have a couple of separate Google Sites for the operations. Yeah, and then of course, yeah, there are some things which we don't need in there for the whole entire team, which would be separate, like accounting software and things, rather than using Xero and keeping those details elsewhere. But I even have my own Google site. I have one that tells me what to pack when I go on a surfing holiday, what to pack when it's a work trip, so I don't have to rethink these things. How many pairs of socks to pack? It says as many socks as days plus one.
Simple and effective.
There you go. There you go. Now, so what happens? Let's look like go on the journey. So let's say, okay, cool. We're building building the systems. We've got a VA now. Probably to start building the systems first, right? Like building the systems, and then we got the VA, so it didn't take more and more time. We could sort of go, hey, do this, 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 and the processes are already recorded, and then they come in well, or working from home, wherever they are in the Philippines, and it's going well. We're starting to scale things up a little bit. Probably still busy because I'm, the business person, of course, finding new things, but I'm freeing up my time a bit. And you mentioned focusing on the growth activities like the marketing and sales. What do you think happens next? So you start to build out the team, and then you got to lead them as well. What if I don't know, you're just good at what you do. I don't know, you sell sunglasses and you know the sunglasses style, or you're a health consultant and that's what you're good at. You're not good at guiding a team. And now suddenly you've got to manage these people. you want to be the world's greatest leader, but you don't want to give away money, and what's your take on this? So we're now building a team. How do we lead them?
Yeah, it's a great question, and leadership is so important. And we really all have to be a great leader. And there's a difference between a leader and a manager, right? If you think about maybe when you've worked in a job before, a manager just, are you doing the KPIs? Are you doing what you're meant to be doing? Whereas a leader is more interested about, okay, there's different sayings, right? Like they're present, maybe they're leading from the front, they're getting more involved, they're helping the team grow as well, right? And there's a whole element there of really motivating the team, right? That's the element of what leadership is, because the leader, as the business owner, we have the vision, right? Like this is where we want to go in the business. We want to make this impact, or solve this problem, and this is going to be the journey, on the mission and everything that we're going on, and the values that become part of that, right? So all of those key elements, the purpose of that business and everything that is linked to that, that's what people are buying into a lot of the time when they work for you, going, wow, I want to work for Christo, I want to work for Athin, because they've got this amazing vision, what they're doing in their business, right? Compared to anybody else. So you've got to portray that vision to them, and then you've got to keep people motivated along that vision and understand that, money isn't just the motivator. It may motivate some people, right? Because there's different motivators, but just because you pay them a wage or however you've structured to pay them, doesn't mean that they're just going to turn up and just give 100% all the time, right? And things can pop up in people's lives, right? What happens if, on the way to work, or their child's a bit unwell, or, they have a little car accident, or their grandma passed away, right? Things can pop up in life. We're humans, and understanding that, emotional intelligence is really important as well, right? So understanding that we've all got emotions as humans, and that in business, we need to be able to make decisions from a neutral emotion perspective as well. So if we're too excited, we can make some bad decisions. Or if we're angry, we can obviously lash out and say some bad things and make some bad decisions. Mm-hmm. So understanding what your self-leadership comes first is like, how am I self-regulating my emotions so I'm not screaming at my staff or doing something that's outside of being a leader? How am I showing up, right? And then when you're, and you have to learn these things, right? And understanding that there's different personality types too. So you've probably heard, Christo, about DISC profiling, DISC, right? So it's a very simple 4 personality traits. People normally have 2. You've got the dominant, influential, conscientious, and steady, right? They can be called other names, but that's basically what they are. And when you understand this, and then I recommend doing this for everyone before you hire them, right? Like at the start, people, and even if you have a current team, do this, because you'll see that how you communicate to each person needs to be different, because how they interpret information, will be different. So if they're very highly dominant, they don't want to beat around the bush and talk about how the weekend was and stuff like that. They just want to get to the point and get results, right? So, whereas somebody else that's lower D and higher I and maybe S, they want to talk about all that stuff, and they're more the people in your business. So you need to understand, who are you hiring? For what type of role do you want as their personality for what they're doing, whether it's a VA or somebody else, and then going, okay, how do I adjust my style, right? Because the old style was treat people how you want to be treated. It actually is treat people how they want to be treated, right? It's understanding what their personality type is, treat them, speak to them in that way so they get the message, number one, and then they feel you can understand then even their deeper motivations of why they're here as you talk to them. And you have to meet with them regularly. It's not like, hey, yeah, here's some process documents, have fun for the week, and we'll see you next week, right? It's like you got to have ideally daily huddles with your team. Like in the morning, check in. Maybe it's 5-10 minutes going, hey guys, what are our top 3 tasks for the day? What are you doing? Awesome. Maybe we'll check in at the end of the day or the next morning. Maybe, I do daily trainings with my VA, right? I have a daily meeting where we go through stuff together, and, she's summarizing things for me, right? So it's like, hey, okay, what have I got in my emails? What have I got in all these other areas? What do I need to do? Because I'm focusing on the bigger stuff. She goes, okay, I think we've got these 5 things I need you to action now. Bang, 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 make it all happen, and then move on. And then we might do a training. We might do something else, right? In that area there. So that's how I've structured my day with my VA to be very efficient. So understanding, what can you do to be that? And you really have to be a leader. And if you don't think that you're a leader, well, then, learn from people, whether it's me, Chris, or other people, to be a leader, do some training, and start to take on the identity of a leader. And I think this is the big part generally about business, right? And business owners is the identity shift, where there's an identity shift from being in a job as a worker, let's call it, to a business owner. Then, you become a leader identity. And then it's almost thinking about what's the next phase. And that's more like an investor identity, right? Because as a business owner, we need to think like an investor. Would someone invest into our business, right? We have all these systems in place. It's not reliant just on ourselves. We've got a team in place, and then we can look at potentially other businesses, other income streams, other areas where we can enjoy more about what we do in life. So when you do that leadership element, this is how you can build an empire, right? Whether it's one business, multiple businesses, doesn't matter. And then you're able to buy back your time. And I think, it also comes down to when we talk about time, the revenue generating tasks like the sales and marketing, it's also what can you remove even in your personal life? For example, like, are you getting someone to mow the lawns at home? Are you getting, we get our shopping delivered from Woolworths, right? Or wherever you get it from. So we don't have to go for an hour to, and do the shopping personally. We get a cleaner in that comes in and does stuff for us. We could do these things, but our time in the business is more effective and, for the growth of the business on other things. So sometimes you have to analyze where you are. This hopefully will help the shift on what's going on in your personal life and in the business, and going, well, these are the lower level tasks that, is there, because it's a responsibility, right? When you're hiring people, that you've got to pay these people, right? They've got a job. They're expecting the business to grow. So we've got to be focusing on the revenue generating stuff to keep the business growing so that we can pay these people and everyone really enjoys what they're doing. So I know I went on a few different angles there, but I hope that helped pave the path of what's actually required and the mindset shifts, and then what you need to implement to really step into that leader role to create a team that really is high performing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I like it's the whole, like you said, like your personal life blurs the business person. It's like you've got the same to-do list that has, email to database, set up promotion, buy eggs, um, you know, change that light bulb in the garage. Like it's all the same to-do list, making sure exactly things are prioritized and outsourced to the lower level. I love it, and I love the approach to leadership. I think just like coming to mind, it's like, yeah, like what we've done throughout the years as well is like the typical business hierarchy. People draw a pyramid, and we go, look, ours is flipped. So when you get a promotion, you're actually going down the because your job now is to support more. You're helping more above you. The more you're carrying, the more you're helping anyone in a role that's below you, would be normally called. Your job's to make sure they're set up, they're doing the best job they possibly can, they're delivering, they're clear on what they're doing, they're clear on how they can improve. People need to know what's my role and what can I do better and how am I currently going. Like just these simple things to keep them happy in their job. And yeah, and also so that part of that flipping it is like if something's gone wrong, like you're saying, people get angry, and that's a really common one as well because no one does it as good as you. It's like I think your own thinking has got to be like if someone stuffs up, our minds, you firstly got to take responsibility before you react and yell at them. It's like either your instructions to that person sucked or it's the wrong person for the role. You're getting them to do something that they're not good at. So it's either your instructions weren't clear enough, like the brief's not good enough, because it just makes you stop and take stock. Like maybe your instructions just weren't, they didn't know what to do. Um, and so let's say now what happens then is we're still busy. We've been doing all these things. Where do we go? Like I know we mentioned before the recording, you said some ideas around health, and so I thought that'd be a cool one to move through to as well because now what's happened? The business person, they're busy. They've got their VA. They're scaling up the business. They're focusing on revenue, and they've forgotten about their health. Now they've realised they don't have the energy. Where do we go from here? So, you're too busy. You're not prioritizing yourself, basically. What happens next? How do we bring health into the mix when we've already got so much to do?
Yeah, health is so important. And, to pre-frame, I see business as the vehicle for our life, right? And there is a blend, but realistically, we're creating the ultimate life that we want, right? Now, yes, at the start of a business, it can be a bit more challenging, but as we start to set things up, we're really, creating the life that we want. And, from a health perspective, it is so important because if we're not at our best, right? If we get sick, for example, like really badly sick because we're pushing ourselves and burnt ourselves out, that's going to affect the business because we're going to be out for a period of time. So making sure that we are managing that is important. And I think there's a lot of stimulants out there, right? And even the most simplest one like caffeine, right? Among sugar and other things like that sort of keep people going in the day. And I'm very wary of these. So I haven't had caffeine for many, many years, right? And I rarely have processed sugar on purpose. So I have a lot of natural energy now, right? Because I'm not used to always needing that caffeine hit, in that area there. I intermittent fast in the morning. Now, that's not for everybody. It's more guys, it's a bit more easier generally, but I don't eat until lunchtime, right, as well. So I find I'm very clear in the morning because sometimes food, depending on what you eat, can slow you down because your body's using energy, right, to think. So understanding what's good for your body. For me, during the day, because I don't have the caffeine or the sugar, I can feel when my energy's like lower, right? Like let's say I've got more of a back-to-back day or I'm doing a lot of focus, I'm like, wow, okay, I need a quick break, right? So I've got my little backyard outside. I'll walk out with bare feet, right? I'll ground, I'll do some breathing, right? That area there. And even just a few minutes of that, with some sun ideally, that's massive, right? To be able to just allow me to refresh. Now, whether you can do your feet outside or not, even just taking that break, that little walk or something, and just getting out of that zone and just doing some breaths, closing, some slow breaths, some box breathing or whatever works for you, to refresh the stress element, and then refresh the energy, I think is so important. I think a lot of people just push themselves, right? I think you shouldn't be doing more than 90 minutes, right? Sometimes they say even 50 minutes, right, at a time, where some people go for 3-4 hours straight and you wonder why, you're pushing yourself too much. So being aware of that, you could even put some alarms in your phone or something if that helps, to remind you to have those breaks if you're not used to it. For me, like people saying, Ethan, I can't get out of coffee. I have too many coffees. I'm like, well, it's up to you, right? On your choice. Because it just inhibits your tired factor. It inhibits those receptors, right, in your body. I went from coffee to green tea, and then I just forgot to drink green tea because I was so focused on what I was doing. And I was like, well, I don't really need it. That's where it went for me, right? And if I'm going to have things that give me energy, I'll have fruit, for example, instead of something sugary, right? You know what I mean? Natural stuff. Or I'll have more natural food during the day, snacks, whether it's nuts or other things like that, alongside healthy things that's going to fuel my body. I'm not just going to have random takeout food and things like that. Even snack wise, I'm getting very healthy stuff, right? Clean things that I'm looking at that's going to fuel me. So being aware of what you're putting into yourself. I think supplementation is important as well. Working out what do you need for your body. And I don't like taking multivitamins. I think for me, it's a specific supplement for a specific reason. So as an example, I got muscle cramps a lot since like 18 years old. I started taking magnesium, never had a muscle cramp again, right, in my life. So specifically for that reason, there could be things like krill oil or fish oil. I take super greens every morning as well. So that allows me to, get a lot of that alkalizing element, right? Because cancer can't thrive in an alkaline body. So really cleansing myself and being alkaline into what I do. There's things like glucosamine and chondroitin because I play soccer still, right? To keep my joints and my cartilage being repaired and everything for prevention. I take vitamin D, which is really important. I take vitamin C, for the immune system. So there's things like that I take. Now, whether you take the exact same things as me, is up to you, right? But understanding that you may not be getting everything from the food that you eat. So you may need to supplement and give yourself things that you need as well. So just be aware of that. And I'm always, being open and researching a lot about what else could help me. So there's that side of it. And then just having some sort of practice of maybe it's meditation where you just sit there quietly for a little bit in the part of the day. And it doesn't have to be this amazing thing that you think meditation is. Sometimes just sitting there, and maybe that's why you're outside, like I'm talking about, and just allowing your thoughts and just seeing what happens, that little break in the thought pattern to refresh. I think is really important too. So that's sort of what I think about from a health perspective, and then going, well, what do I want to do? Because as the business owner, what I find is that business just fills in the rest of the day, right? Like, because we could work till midnight if we wanted to, right? Like very easily. We got to set the boundaries. So the way that your health comes into it is life is first. What are you scheduling in your life first? Do you have a morning routine going from whatever time you wake up, 6, 7 o'clock to 9? It's only you, right? Or whatever that is. Maybe you like to start early in the morning or work. Like find out what your routine is. What's that life? Maybe you want time with your kids in the afternoon. Maybe you want to finish at a particular time to connect with your partner, right? Maybe you want to do whatever it is. Maybe you want to watch TV at the end of the night because you like watching TV and you're making sure, you're working backwards. So then you create some boundaries around this and then going, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to work specifically for these areas. And then that way that will allow me to have my health. And then I'm charging myself up with what I eat, my supplements, my routines, my refreshing, breaths and walks, and that physical element, I think is important too for health, right? Even just walking, like a little bit is like the most best thing that we can do for our body. That's been proven with our lymphatic system. If you can do something more like surfing like yourself or soccer like me or other stuff, yes, great. The gym or, CrossFits or running, you can do that too. But even just walking is the most recommended. So doing something physically, which will give you energy, and working out what time of the day that is. If that's a morning thing, an afternoon, an evening thing, you find that out. Drinking clean water, drinking enough water each day, without other types of drinks. These are all the different things that come into it. So we're able to enjoy what we're doing and then not push ourselves too much. I think that's the big thing is don't listen to others going, what's the life I want to do? And then how do I create that around that? And then hire the people that are going to really love what I do. And, if I can work only for a few hours a day, but they're really high level tasks. And then I get that's the risk we take as the business owner, right? We're taking the risk to build this business, to hire all these people. So we get the flexibility to work less or to change our hours, to go to events, to grow ourselves, to pass on learnings to our team. That's the benefit that we get with that risk, where most people aren't willing to take that risk or go in for the long haul, for that commitment of what it actually takes as a sacrifice. It's that short-term gain for long-term, benefit in that area there. And I think too many people are doing, instant gratification, right? They want everything now with Netflixes and all that, rather than going, what am I building for the future? I'll do it for a period of time, but how do I get to that now? What does that look like? And how do I start to work backwards from that now? So there's my little very in-depth tips about how I look at health. I hope that helps you and your listeners about some things that they can look at to really create the life and business that they design.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for sharing, well, not just that, but so much and so freely today, on this episode. This has been awesome. Really do appreciate it. And so if people want to learn more about you, where do they find you? Where can we tune in? What's next? What's the easiest way for someone to get more from you, I guess?
Yeah, definitely. So my website is athincassiotis.com. So ATHINCASSIOTIS.com. You see everything about what I'm doing there. I've got my 9 keys to business growth mastery free ebook on the site that you can get, where I go deep on all of those areas. And it's, I won a competition for that ebook. So definitely get it. And also, I'm on all the socials as Athin Cassiotis, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, all the fun ones. There's only one of me, so it's easy to find there, which makes it fun. And just feel free to reach out. I'm always there to add value. I'm doing events, doing all these other things. Happy to whether it's point you in the right direction or help you directly. Always like to do that. And definitely find me there. And thanks, Christo, for having me, mate. It's been a pleasure. I just interviewed you on my podcast as well. And it was great to be on yours now, mate. And exciting times ahead. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks so much. And we'll share the links mentioned in the show notes as well. So if you're tuning in on a mobile or wherever you are, you'll be able to find them in the, if you expand the show notes, you'll be able to see those there to directly access and find Athin. So thanks again. Chat to you soon, mate.
Thanks, mate. Chat soon.
To get more from Basic Bananas and to learn new ways to grow your business with clever marketing, visit basicbananas.com.